What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening. I've got Tom Cafarella here. I am Matt Johnson, with the producer of the show, and just wanted to give you a little heads up on why we are relaunching and rebranding the show, right? So if you've been paying attention, if you've been listening to Real Estate Mogul in the past, since its launch, you've heard a lot of conversations with prominent investors and agents and people that are leading real estate teams and also have this incredible investing machine and all kinds of things like that. We're going to change the focus of the show a little bit. And so I just wanted to have a quick conversation with Tom to explain a little bit about the thinking behind that and what now to expect that we've rebranded and relaunched the show as Agent Investor. So first of all, Tom Cafarella, what's up today?
Not too much, just living the life, having fun, and excited to get going back on this.
I know, me too. So let's give the people a little bit, just a glimpse into your world. You've been in the trenches for the last year and a half or so.
Yeah.
What have you been doing in the, furiously whiteboarding, I'm sure, note-taking, hiring people? You've been doing a lot of stuff, but give people an inside look at what you've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who know me, obviously I've got the brokerage and the real estate fix and flip company, and I spent the last couple of years really just, tightening up all my systems there and just building that out as much as I could. I think kind of like when Matt, me and you started like doing the other podcast, I was at a point where I was like in a really good spot with the company, but at the same time, like it wasn't at a point where I could take a bunch of time away and do other things. And I felt like I was kind of like juggling two things at once and not really doing a great job at either. So, since the last time I've been, live like this, like I've, double the size of my brokerage, double the amount of projects that we do per year, and just really focused on, hiring the right people for the company and continuing to build out my brokerage and my brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in terms of like, you were coaching at one point, just kind of the average person on the street working 9 to 5 that wanted to get into investing, and just realized that that's not super fun. The people you really have a heart to help are the actual agents themselves, especially the ones that have been in your brokerage that you've helped them to get into investing. So tell me a little bit about that journey and why you really enjoy working with agents who want to get into investing rather than just the average real estate investor.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily that I don't really like working with the average person. It's like a combination of a few different things, I think. Like, first of all, like all of my systems are based around what I would call like the agent investor model. And like, even when I did the coaching, like somebody that had no prior experience, no ability to like take listings or understand what lead generation is, I just felt like I was kind of like so focused on the agent investor model that for a lot of people that are like trying to quit their 9 to 5, like a lot of the stuff that I do is like, it's almost like it's past that education level. And it was tough for me to kind of like almost rewind the clock back to like day one for myself. But in addition to that, like real estate agents are also the people that I like have the most fun kind of training and coaching and mentoring too, along with the people that I have the best results with because of the systems that I had kind of set up in my business. And I think the other thing that why I love kind of focusing on the aging side of it is for an agent, like so much of the investing component is something that like, not only do they have most of the tools to do, but like they have such a need to do it. I mean, most agents, they spend, the majority of their life, even high income earning agents, making 6 figures or even above that. And then like the day that they stop working, their income shuts off. Yeah. And whereas like, just by adding like some of the agent investor tools that, we'll talk about as kind of the show goes on, like, they can build a retirement for themselves. And it's such like a need. And again, that's just opposed to like the person who's like trying to just quit a 9 to 5. And, at the end of the day, I think like all of us that have ever owned a business, you realize like you want to be all things to all people, but it's actually not the best thing to do. And so for me, I just realized that like the agent, focus was my thing. And that's what I'm, focused on moving forward.
Yeah. Is there anybody that kind of stands out in your brokerage, just in your network of relationships that have made that leap and started, just kind of that from that agent that hasn't really been paying attention to starting to see the deals, starting to take those chances and starting to add some passive income? Any brief success stories that you can point to that really solidified that is kind of the path you'd like to take people on?
Oh God. Yeah. And those are like some of my, favorite stories and favorite kind of like almost call them like a testimonial,
Mm-hmm.
where like, for when people kind of come into my brokerage or they start paying attention to some of my training, like it's either like one of two things typically. Either they're coming into the brokerage because of the investing side, and then like those people are typically like ready to take action. And like we've had people that like were selling 15-20 million dollars a year in real estate that are now like more focused on investing than being a real estate agent because they're more profitable and they like it more. And then the other type of people that I love are the people who come into my world either through, training or just through the brokerage, and they're like not even interested in investing. And then all of a sudden, like the light bulbs goes off because they see what we're doing every single day. And for somebody like that, like, I mean, for any agent, I just look at it like if you can add one rental property a year, just as like a goal that would seem really, really small, like 10, 15 years down the line, like you're going to have enough to retire if you want, or continue to kind of build up wealth. So, so typically like, the people who, success stories that I've had either fall into one of those two categories. Either like they're really not like super interested in investing, but then they see it as like a vehicle and they start to do some small stuff, whether it's like, hey, I'm going to do like one flip a year or buy one rental property. Or I have the person that's like, hey, I'm coming to Tom Cafarella. I'm coming into his world because I want to do 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 flips a year because I want to build up a $10,000 a month passive income. And, one story that I loved is actually about a month ago, I had an agent who came over to me that was in that realm, who had been doing like 1 or 2 flips a year, owned a couple of multifamilies. And he was telling me about a deal that he just put under contract, a 20-unit residential building. And I was talking to him and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Like that makes, $4,000 to $5,000 a month cash flow. And he's like, yeah, I'm up to 50 units now. And it's funny because in my mind, like, even though I always talk to him and everything, like in my mind, he had like 10 units. And obviously I'm not like doing the math on every person I'm talking
Right.
to see like, hey, what do you have? What do you have? But like, he'd tell me about a deal here, a deal there. And when he told me 20 units, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. He's up to like 25 or 30 or whatever. He's like, I'm up to 50 units. And I'm like, man, I just looked at him. I'm like, you have enough passive income now, like where you don't have to work if you don't want to.
Yeah.
And those are the types of things that like, I feel like when you're an agent that's in the business and you see it, the rate of success is so much faster. And that for me, that's why like it's just more enjoyable, because the odds of somebody like at a 9 to 5 doing something as quick as that is just like not as typical.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. Cause it's funny you mentioned the agent that is interested in investing, but kind of gets caught up in being an agent. And I was that person, right? So like I got my real estate license originally to get into the investing side. And then I read Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why am I doing the investing when I should just go and build a 7-figure real estate team? And yeah, I think there's a lot of people that get caught up in that. And then they look up 5-10 years later and they realize, oh man, like, yeah, I'm making great money, but I haven't built anything for the future. I have zero passive income. If I got injured tomorrow, like I got to stay home, or if the government declares me non-essential, then I'm basically out of business and out of commissions. And so I think there's a lot of people that are absolutely in that boat. So let's talk about kind of who is the right person to listen to the show and a little bit about what they'll get out of it. And then we'll finish off with what their next step is. So you mentioned kind of that person that's doing 15 to 20 million. Give me a sense of like, who is that range of agents and what are they typically doing per year where they're going to get a ton of value out of where the show is going?
Yeah. So I think the reality is I really truly believe that like every single real estate agent should be an investor. So the only two buckets I put into it is more like, does somebody want to be like more of a passive investor or really more active? So a lot of times what I find is like people that are really into like the lead generation side, the sales side, like the pushing, the hunting and all that kind of stuff, they kind of gravitate towards more like an active role. So like somebody who's selling, 20, 30, 40 houses a year, like, and he's really super aggressive and like looking to build, like they're the type of person that like, they'll plug into some of our seller lead generation stuff and get a lot of value and learn how to do deals that way. But I also think at the same token, there's also that person who like, they really don't love like real estate investing per se. Like they're not like going on bigger pockets. They're not like
Mm.
someone who's obsessed with real estate investing. And I look at that person, like what they would take away from this podcast is like that one rental property a year, something as small as that is, I mean, it's a life changer. Like if you plug in. So, I mean, really, like I don't really see any agents that, in my opinion, shouldn't get value out of this in some capacity. It's just a matter of whether you do it like in a more passive nature and like really like building that real estate team, or like doing 50 sales a year, like that's what you love. And then you're going to use real estate investing kind of just like as a vehicle for wealth building. Or you're the person where like, you're like, hey, like I want to get really active as an investor. So I think that both can benefit. And I'm not sure that there's like one necessarily, you know, versus the other that would get more of a benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say like one of the shifts in the show is like the first time around, there was a lot of conversations with really high level investors and agents and even team leaders that are, you know, like Jeff Cohn, who's selling, you know, 700 homes a year and flipping and buying 100 properties a year or something like that. Like he's got a whole machine set up, and those guys are awesome and they've got really great content to share. But one of the things that we're going to focus on moving forward is interviewing people and sharing their stories that are just active agents right now that are investing on the side, or they're moving, like you said, from being an active agent more into being an active investor, shifting a little bit, you know, kind of de-emphasizing their role as an agent so that they can spend a little bit more time investing. And so we're sharing some more stories of folks that people probably haven't heard of yet, but are going to be closer to where you're actually at, and sharing exactly what they're doing and what they have done over the last few years, stuff that you can really take action on right now.
I think one of the biggest things that I want to, you know, myths that I want to dispel, like with this podcast in general, is that you have to be like this superstar to be an investor, because you really, really don't. And, you know, like you don't need, like you mentioned Jeff Cohn, you don't need to be selling like 300 houses a year to start investing in real estate. Like you could sell 2 houses a year and still buy 1 rental property a year. You could do 2 flips a year. You could do 5 flips a year. Someone who's selling, you know, 2 or 3 houses. And I think like one of the things that I'm hoping to achieve for anybody who's listening to this is like, it's not that complicated. It's not that hard, and it is worth it. And, you know, especially if you're an agent that, you know, doesn't sell 200 houses a year, 100 houses a year, like you may need this more than the person who is selling 200 houses a year. So yeah, I mean, I know we haven't, you know, put any guests down on paper yet, but, you know, I'm looking to get some people who like, they've been thinking about doing some sort of investing for a while, and they just pulled off like their first deal, or they've done like 2 deals, as opposed to like, you know, somebody who's done 200 and they're going to come on and just, you know, it's going to seem so far out of reach.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Ends up being an ego fest of how many doors they have, which is, yeah, if you listen to a lot of real estate investing podcasts, you get into that, which is funny. But let's finish out with the next steps. So what is the next thing? If they enjoy the podcast and they want to get into your world, they want to get around you, they want to get more training from you, where do they go?
Yeah. I mean, so my, you know, my world at this point, like what I'm funneling most people in is to my private Facebook group. And so if you're interested, all that you need to do is go to www.joincameroncoaching.com. Again, that's www.joincameroncoaching.com. And within there, like that's where I do all of my training. And like Matt had kind of alluded to before, like I did a bunch of coaching. And one of the things that like I like it, but I also love being able to give away like my best stuff for free. Because when I first started, you know, I grew up poor. Like I didn't have access to anything. Like I would go to a 3-day seminar and they'd be like, hey, it's 30 grand to sign up for this. And like, while it was enjoyable to be able to sell that and to be able to offer that, and I liked helping people, at the same time, like I don't want to leave out the person that was myself, that didn't have any money to start, but was willing to put in the time, effort, and energy. So what you guys will see, like all you have to do is request access to that. You're going to see like my best content that I was charging a whole bunch of money for, like for free. And, you know, I hope that you guys get, you know, a lot of value out of it. And yeah, joincameroncoaching.com.
Perfect. That's awesome, man. I'm excited to see where the podcast goes. And I think people are going to get a kick out of the new conversations that they're going to hear. And just make sure to go out. And if you're enjoying it, make sure to share it with another agent, especially, other people
Yep.
in your office, other friends in the business. Make sure to go leave a rating and a review, because that feeds the algorithm and it puts the podcast in front of more people so it can help more people. So we just want to say that we appreciate everyone who's been paying attention and was paying attention to the podcast the first time around. And now that we're going in a little bit more focused direction, I hope you stay with us, but also tell folks about it that can benefit from it. So, Tom, as always, thanks so much, and look forward to awesome things to come.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.